Hello and good morning everybody, and welcome to Rockport, or Monterey, or Rockport on the Monterey map. This is not my build, again. This is, I've been invited to do a guest build on Timeister's channel. And this is his city, Rockport, inspired by a lot, in more large part about Auckland, New Zealand. And it's a beautiful city. I had a part in making this map, and I'm so excited to see like all the sort of creations on it. I should say this is Alex B, who made this map, the amazing Monterey map. I helped by building bridges and stuff like that, like the stuff I usually like to do. So, but yeah, so I was invited, and I'm kind of excited to do this build. I will be building a stadium complex, or a kind of stadium build, and I will be building it here in this lot here. It's a little bit hilly, but it's fine. We'll try to use that and incorporate the hill into the actual the sort of design, or the sort of design of area in the park, and try to get as many uses as possible. Like this is going to be a pretty, it's close to the skyscrapers, which hints to me this is a very sort of dense part of the city. It kind of needs to reflect that the land use inside of this square as well. Like we need to be very proper about filling every space, which is nice. I really like to do this anyway. Like it's more that I struggle to not fill every space, but it's going to be one of those builds. I've cheated. I have tried to build it a few times, and tested a few options and let them marinate for a few days, and now I'm finally ready to record this, and yeah, let's get into it.
First of all, I want to thank Timeister for asking me to build this. I am a big sort of fanboy of Timeister. I've been following, or like watching his builds since he was building Timbukton in SimCity 4. Like that's how far back it goes. And in many ways, this build is a perfect tribute to Timeister, because he did a South African inspired build. I think it was about a year or 2 years ago now. It's been a while, but for some reason that build really sort of resonated with me as well. Like he makes amazing stuff, but that one, I just remember it very clearly for some reason. I don't remember why, but it was special. And the stadium we're choosing for this build is actually a stadium that reminds me a lot of the large World Cup soccer stadium in Cape Town. Cape Town, South Africa, where this build was based off. So that's a little bit of a hint. I like that. I am placing down the stadium, the Copper Bowl, I think it's called. Copper Bowl from Bad Peanuts Stadiums pack. We'll be using a lot of Bad Peanut content packs today, by the way. But this is the first thing. I'm dragging out this first path that's like aligned with the center of it, so it sort of creates a natural I don't know, like it just sort of connects it with that junction. Not necessarily a junction, but like the sight lines and stuff like it. Just the symmetry here is really nice, and like geometry with these things is like is hard to overdo. It's really cool. I can highly recommend it. I'm using node controller to make the nodes better, I guess, and I'm using move it to copy and paste, and mirror to get like the shapes copied over. It ends up looking like an egg, and I go to some lengths to sort of fix that now, but it doesn't have to be a perfect circle. It sort of just has to roughly match the stadium. I also realized it's misaligned. It's not actually centered, so all that stuff, I just go and have to eyeball it with move it. Yeah. So eyeballing is really powerful. I always forget how powerful. I always talk like I start out by building things and try to get everything like super geometrically perfect, perfectly lined, but I always end up like actually defaulting to sort of eyeballing, and it's the way like it's the way to do everything really. Like you can do so much with just eyeballing it. Like I remember I was doing like move it bridges back in the day. Like some of my first ever like move it export bridges are basically eyeballed. Everything is like eyeballed because I didn't know any way to align them better. And these are still some of my most favorite bridges, and like it goes to show that you really sometimes close enough is really good enough. And I'm probably I don't know. This is something I probably have to say to myself more than I have to tell you guys about it. But you know, anyway. Eyeballing is a powerful tool. It's something you can practice as well. It's not easy. It's not like necessarily easy to know how to eyeball effectively, but it's definitely something you can practice and something I've gotten better at, like from just doing it a lot. So I wonder. I'm super curious. Like I wonder if like eyeballing stuff like this in cities makes me a better sort of. Am I better to hang up paintings like without using one of those water leveling tools? I don't know. Maybe cities has taught me something about real life handicrafts. Anyway, the geometry continues. I'm dragging out like more of these paths. I really want this whole block to be. This block is going to be the stadium park, and like everything is sort of supposed to align and point towards the stadium, or not necessarily point to, but lead toward the stadium in a natural way. Like if you're a visitor here and you don't know where do I go, you know, I want to catch the game, where do I go? Like you shouldn't have to worry about finding a way. You should have to worry about walking, and it will lead you like to the stadium. Like it will lead you where you need to go by just following your gut feeling. And I think that's a interesting sort of thing to try to implement in games like this, and I guess in designs in general. So I guess what I'm saying is every road leads to the stadium. Here I'm adding like a small pond on the lowest sort of point of the lot, so it would like catch stormwater, drain water. I don't know. Like we've had a lot of storms here recently, and it really goes to show, like with the flooding as a consequence, like it really goes to show you need to sort of think about these things in cities. So I placed a little bit of a pond. Hopefully it will be enough to prevent this area from flooding. Damn. I wish there was a game that sort of implemented like flooding and like rainwater accumulation, and so you had to deal with it. I'm that kind of a nerd. Yeah, I also placed a small football or soccer stadium, whatever you will. I'll call it football, but I mean I accept it's called soccer. It makes sense also. So, and my idea is like it's a small like like practice field or like extra field for if you, I don't know, for whatever reason would need one. Usually these complexes are a little bit larger, and like they're not necessarily in the same location as the stadium, but since we could fit one in, I think might as well, like, you know, it fits. What am I thinking about now? I'm thinking about adding the parking lots, the first step of the parking. And of course I want to make the parking like at least partially geometric as well, or like sort of matching the shape. So I'm using here network multi-tool and parallel parking, I guess. I'm making these parking lot roads that you can find by searching for parking lot in Find It if you have the train stations CCP, also by Bad Peanut. So I told you we'll be talking about the Bad Peanut CCPs today. It has this nice parking lot road that isn't actually functional, but we can make it functional by overlapping with these guys here, the parking lot buildings that were added in one of the last updates, I believe. Yeah. So yeah, those roads aren't functional by themselves. I have made a video of this about a year ago, using them together with IMT to create the illusion of like functional parking. It's a cool idea and a cool video for like learning concepts about IMT, but I wouldn't recommend using that technique today, because it's not necessarily, you're not supposed to do what I did with sort of automatically generated props and IMT. It's supposed to, it's a little bit of a naughty thing, but some people say that it might cause issues with save games, so that's just enough to say it. Maybe don't do it that way, but anyway. And here I found like, oh yeah, there's a metro station. There's a metro station on this block already. There's also a large tower, but I thought like, this metro station looks good. We'll try to incorporate this, but I just rotate it around so that it's facing the paths. Once again, like sort of everything aligns toward the stadium. So you just sort of get off the metro and just walk straight ahead, and you will get where you're going. We'll get to the stadium. It just feels very, very natural. I'm using node controller to reduce the segment end distance to make it a little bit sort of less rounded. We'll be getting into a lot of node controller stuff in a bit after I reconnect the metro here. Network multitool is really good for metros, by the way. I recommend network multitool for metros. You don't, yeah, it makes like for smooth connections even when you don't see anything, because it's all underground. So, and yeah, here I am thinking maybe it doesn't have to connect all the way to the road. Like, we have plenty of pedestrian crossings like going into the road and just creating junctions unnecessarily. I try to avoid creating more junctions on this road, because it's kind of already, it's supposed to be a large road, like large high capacity throughput road, but by just clogging it up with intersections, we're kind of gonna ruin it a little bit, both for pathfinding and for aesthetics. So I basically created a sort of we'll see later. There's going to be more parking there. I did create the junction, but it was not just a pedestrian junction going to a road. That's the point. And here I'm connecting the parking lot. This road I'm fine with. It doesn't feel like it could afford like one more junction around there. Yeah. And now I'm roughly eyeballing these guys, the parking lot buildings, because we're not going to place them and just keep it like this. There's going to be some trickery here. There's going to be some node controller trickery. Some intense node controller trickery even. We'll see it in quite literally just a few seconds now, probably. So I'm creating some extra nodes and moving them roughly where they need to be, but now is where everything starts. There is this thing in node controller that lets you freeform, that lets you just move the points basically freely. You have to set it so that it's freeform, and you can just move them manually, like pointing and clicking, kind of, or dragging and moving, I suppose. And this is one of the biggest sort of, not necessarily that I used it like this. I would have used it like with a numbers-based approach in the old node controller, but when I found that the new node controller, that is NCR, the one that almost everybody's using anyway, I'm sorry for being confusing about the node controller versions, but when I found that this version has this feature, I was like, yeah, I can use this. Is fine, because I was very much like on the fence about getting it, and waiting a long time because I was afraid it didn't have all the functions I needed to have. So, but with this, it almost has everything you need. So, and you can see it's here we go again with eyeballing. This is really the absolutely easiest way to do this is eyeball. If you try to perfectly align this, you will spend a lot more time, and you will get gray hair, I think, or you will pull out your hair. It's pretty frustrating. So eyeballing this is a good trick. it gets a little bit complicated anyway because the points are conflicting with the connecting paths, so I need to sort of fiddle with that for a bit, and I do fiddle with that for quite a bit, and you're about to see that, so excuse me for that, but I don't know. It's a very neat trick anyway. I don't usually go crazy with it, but for like stuff like this where it's like basically a detail, the parking lot is not really that necessary for the function or anything, I can go pretty crazy with it. And I think this just one lane of geometric parking really makes really sells the point that this is a, I don't know, a proper stadium that's integrated into its surroundings. Yeah, and yeah, you can see it's like it's so many numbers. It gets a bit intimidating using Node Controller because of that, I feel. But when you learn how to sort of manipulate it, you can do almost anything. Like soon you're gonna see me start messing around with the elevation numbers. You can move the height of these points as well. You can because we kind of need that in this case for it to have a smooth connection, because the slope starts just after the node and it kind of doesn't behave nicely otherwise. So you're about to see me edit some numbers, but it's getting closer. It's getting closer, slowly getting closer. Yeah, here you can see me doing the numbers. So you can scroll the numbers, you can just put them in manually. Don't be afraid to play around with the numbers. Also, don't be afraid to play around with the numbers and see what does what, because in many cases, like, it's very complicated to know what it means without actually testing it. So, but just test it out, change things and see like, oh yeah, this does that, and after a while you get the idea of what is possible. And you don't need to necessarily know everything by heart, exactly where to edit what value and stuff like that, but if you just know what is possible, that means you can go back and figure it out when you need to. When you know that you have that tool, you basically, the knowledge is the key to oh my god, r/I'm 14 and that's deep. Yeah, okay, I was apparently happy with that for now. I'm recording this voiceover like a day or two after I recorded the build itself. I got distracted with some other things, but it was fun sort of remembering, oh yeah, that's what I was thinking when doing this and stuff like that. So, and I do think that we're basically going to we need to have this be a pedestrian area because of how many things will be connected only by pedestrian paths. So creating a pedestrian area and a pedestrian area main building, and might as well use some of the pedestrian plazas and promenades district unique buildings, which I think fit really well, and using them like this creates a kind of mini plaza over here by the metro station, which I think it came out like really nice. It's one of my favorite parts of the build. And to connect this path though, I do need to add a small pedestrian path that connects the sort of the actual pedestrian road and the other road. So they don't sort of connect over by default by proximity. They need to have some kind of pedestrian path to transition via, and that's what I did right there. And here we're adding, I guess, the second element of parking, I guess. It's the parking garage, a parking garage building. I had a very elaborate plan, I should say, like before this, to create something much more similar to I think it's a parking garage. I think in Munich. Oh, let's talk about some inspiration. Yeah, I've been inspired a little bit from stadiums in the stadium in Cape Town, the World Cup 2010 stadium there, because it kind of looks similar to the stadium, how it looks. But also by a visit to Munich, I think in like 2011 or something like that. And I took the metro and I went to where the Allianz Arena is, the large Bayern Munich football stadium. I don't particularly like Bayern Munich, but I think it's a cool stadium. It's basically built on top of this large parkish thing with lots of paths, and I think it's a parking garage underneath it. So I had this plan to do something like that, but it turned out to be a little bit complicated. So what I do instead is actually what I'm doing right now. I'm adding a tunnel entrance underneath these parking lots, so it looks like there is a sort of underground parking deck. So it looks like they're in the same sort of structure. Basically, the parking lots were built over this underground parking. It's a bit neat. I like it. It's not functional. The other parts of the parking are functional, but this isn't. You could also see me actually add a road into the parking garage that will make people drive through, or like people will drive in there and out. Also, camper vans will definitely sort of hit the roof while trying to do it, but I think it's a nice touch. It sort of connects it a bit better to the road network, and it looks nice to just have cars driving into the garage, even though we're just going in to make a U-turn. So okay, and here I'm deciding on what main building should we do. And it takes me quite a while. I figure like we don't need a big, massive main building, so we could have a smaller one and do something else, like maybe more parking. But it's like I turned that idea down because I feel like it looks a little bit repetitive, or like a little bit weird with the other parking. And yeah, and here I get this. I found like I just sort of genius idea. I did record a lot of this before, I did build this before and test stuff, but you always find new stuff, and this was one of the new things I found, like that I didn't expect to use, like this panda statue that if you place it like in the pedestrian path junction, it creates this sort of nice geometric, I don't know how to describe it, like it creates a nice geometric effect in the pavement. And I liked it so much. I had another plan for a sort of for artwork that I will use. I will try to find and use it now. But that panda path trick was kind of fun. Yeah, here's the one I was planning to do, because it's a soccer stadium or a football stadium, and like, you know, might as well use this round artsy thing. And you know what? What if we just copy and paste it a few times and rotate it and make it look like an actual ball or a globe? It was kind of fun. Being a bit artsy. Now I'm switching out the trees for the generic pine tree, which is the closest to the Norfolk Island pine I can find in the vanilla game. This map is set in New Zealand, and the Norfolk Island pine would be a very, very common tree for stuff like that, I believe, in New Zealand, or at least it would be a very common. It's a very nice tree. It's like my favorite tree. I really like that tree. I've talked about it in other videos, and I probably will keep talking about it. I really like the Norfolk Island pine tree. I should also talk about that trip to Munich, because there's it's kind of weird. I was interrailing. I just got on the metro and saw different parts of it without really having any plan. And the parts I happened to see was where the Olympic Park, and the Allianz Arena, and like a few other places, of course. But I just happened to see these locations because I was kind of a little bit interested, I guess. But I've also taken like a little bit of inspiration from or I would have loved to take more inspiration, but I've definitely been inspired a little bit by the Olympia Park, because it's a really nice, sort of very large, lush green park with these stadiums scattered all around, like from the Olympics 1972 in Munich. There's a pond, so we have that. There's this angled, curved parking lot, so you know that's 2 points. It has some man-made hills though that we don't really have in this. Maybe you have a little bit of a bump on on this side here, but it's a little bit lacking in the hills. But I don't know, a Munich Olympia Park build like could be its own thing, I think, and it's still pretty interesting place. Yeah. Here I am connecting that said pond to roads using pedestrian paths, because you can do that. Sometimes it lets you do that without actually even giving you the sort of the clipping, without sort of having to turn on anarchy. Some vanilla parks let you just connect paths to the built-in paths, which is great. But I feel like it's a good thing to do to integrate it a bit better in the environment here. And there, I just deleted that. I just smoothed out that hill. We had one hill and we smoothed it out. I guess no Olympia Park for us. Yeah, it's definitely nearing completion now. Like we're going around and doing the trees. That's usually a good sign, because I'm not super happy. I don't claim to be the best person at making trees and like making natural environments and stuff like that. I kind of struggle with it a lot, many times. I wish I was better, but it's, you know, it is what it is. So I have some sort of, I'm not super happy with how the trees turned out, I guess, like in all places. In some parts I'm super happy with it, but in some places, like especially like towards the front of the stadium, I feel like it just feels a little bit weird. But I don't know. It is what it is. The trees have to go in, and you know, we can't just do it without the trees. I do try and spruce it up a little bit. Spruce it up, oh my goodness. Yeah, with those blooming jacaranda trees, which is another hint towards South Africa. These are very, in my mind at least, they are very common in South Africa. Not necessarily, I think, Cape Town. I think it's maybe more like in Johannesburg and Pretoria. But I never use these so much, and I think a stadium like this could actually do with some of that. It especially looks good, especially like around the front of it, the stadium, where I struggle the most with the trees. That's where they are like my last ditch. I tried to save it with those, and it turns out okay. But it's not the most. I'm not the most happy with it, I guess. Here I discover, oh yeah, there's pipes, and then I figured, oh no, I need to do the pipes. I need to do the pipes under the roads so that nobody shouts at me. So I panicked and I did pipes under the roads. Yeah. How many more times will we have to do that? I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, so this is the part where the trees, how much trees is good here in a location like this. I really wanted to keep this area relatively open, or like maybe just like a lawn, but every time I looked at it, it just felt weird, and I tried to go back and just add more and like small clusters and stuff like that. And here I abandoned it for a bit because I realized, you know what, we can do something simpler. We can add some hedges over here, which is nice. I don't know. Let me know, guys, if you struggle with trees like that. Damn. Or like if you struggle with, like if you've heard my monologue about it, like if you have similar sort of experiences doing something else. But yeah. Overall, I'm really happy with how the build turned out, though, and like it's such an honor to be a part of this magnificent city of Rockport, and the Timeister legacy. And thank you so much again for asking me to do this. I had a lot of fun building this, and yeah, it's always nice to do these kind of guest builds because you never you sort of get put a little bit outside of your comfort zone, like, or like you do stuff that you wouldn't necessarily do yourself. Like you get sort of forced to thinking in different terms of history and, like, you know, creating something unique. So I really appreciate that. I think this is very near the end, guys. If you liked this video, I'm trying to see if the time-lapse will end here, or, oh yeah, you know, it's ending here. We're going back to regular pace me for the last couple of seconds. If you like this video, like and subscribe, and be sure to follow Timeister's channel as well to see the continuation of Rockport, or the 9 episodes before this one. So, but that's been all for me. See you guys. Bye.